Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Bob Burke with the Libertarian Party movement in Pearson St. Croix. A proper libertarian library of positions would not be complete without discussing our Federal Reserve and the gold standard. By no means is this going to be comprehensive coverage of the subject. Rather, this is an ambitious introduction to what libertarians see as one of, if not the primary cause of much of the trouble around the world. First, let's dispel an illusion here. Although we call our money US dollars, these pieces of paper that we carry around and hold with such value are in fact owned by the Federal Reserve Bank, which is about as federal as Federal Express. A private bank, not part of our government, owns our money and charges us interest to use it. The Federal Reserve is also using its control over our nation's interest rate and its ability to print to sustain the appearance of a healthy and vibrant economy. In fact, what the Federal Reserve is really doing is creating more hardship for our poor and destroying the savings of every American, and I'll show you how. This is a chart of price inflation in the U.S. from 1881 through 1959. In this very first period that I've shown here, note the rise of inflation from roughly 1913, when the Federal Reserve was created, until about 1921. This was our Federal Reserve's first foray into money printing, which, as you can see from the inflation, was how the First World War was paid for, and what made the Roaring Twenties roar. That money sloshed around for years, and when the inflation finally hit a wall in 1929, we had a market crash and we started the Great Depression. This second era is 1960 through 1971. The Federal Reserve again began printing money to help the federal government pay for the war in Vietnam. The inflation created by this action forced President Richard Nixon in 1971 to take America, and by default the world, off of the gold standard. The gold standard was a monetary system which simply said that $35 could be taken into the U.S. Treasury and redeemed for 1 ounce of gold on demand anytime you wanted it. When the gold standard ended in 1971, that meant that no amount of dollars could be exchanged at the Treasury for any gold. That made the Federal Reserve free to just print. This is price inflation since 1971. Look at this for a moment and honestly tell me that this doesn't concern you, especially when you put this into a more complete historical perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, inflation isn't the cost of prices going up. Inflation is the value of your money going down. Inflation is the thief that robs most from the poor and eats the gains in your savings and retirement. If you want to know why the poor continue to get poorer and the middle class can't seem to save, this is why. And for those who abhor CEO greed and wish to tax and regulate it to death, this chart shows from 1970 through the mid-80s, and it is the median CEO compensation in dark brown, the average worker wage income in light brown, and corporate profits in gray. As this chart shows, our gold standard acted as a natural governor on the system and kept CEO compensation, worker compensation, and corporate profits in a fairly narrow band. This is the complete chart. As the confines of the gold standard slowly eroded away, the Federal Reserve's inflation and money printing benefited the wealthy most. That is how the rich got richer. I could continue to show you correlation after correlation of issues, and in each correlation, the poor and the middle class pay the tab. Let's stop pointing at the red and blue teams and blaming them for not taxing the rich enough. Again, it's another distraction from the real cause of our problems. That would be the private bank known as the Federal Reserve. Period, sentence, paragraph, chapter, novel. Occupy Wall Street was at the wrong address. The Fed's address is 33 Liberty Street, New York, New York. You guys missed it by a couple of blocks. I do have some good news here. I plan on doing everything that I can, and you can also do that now by joining us on February 23rd, 8 a.m. for registration for the Libertarian Party Caucus being held at the University of Wisconsin, River Falls. And together, we can end what Andrew Jackson described as a den of vipers. We are Liberty Valley, Wisconsin.